Hello, my name is Alexander. Welcome to the first episode of Born of Love. This is part of the Star Warriors Anang Ogichidaag restorative movement to resurrect those whose souls have been murdered through sexual abuse and all forms of abuse and trauma. I'm making this podcast for a Native American girl who may never hear it. And even if she does stumble upon this someday, she may turn it off when she realizes it's me who made it. Because she lost sight of who I am. But despite everything that's happened, I'll never forget who you are, Star. I promised Star when I met her that I would never abandon her like others had, but she pushed me out of her life because of the pain and confusion that she was still suffering from what happened to her as a child. As a result of that, this is the only way I can figure how to keep my promise. So as much as it is for her, it's also for any of you out there who are like her. I hope that by listening to stories of survivors like you, it will give you strength and help you heal. Because ultimately, that's all I ever wanted for Star. For her to be healed and have a great life and know how much she is loved. That's what I want for all of you as well.
My name's Austin Ice. I'm a member of the Pine Ridge Reservation. I'm a member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. I'm 46 years old. I'm born and raised here in Wounded Knee, South Dakota. I'm married 11 and a half years, been together about 23. Here in our community, we have a lot of, my wife's a domestic violence advocate. Her name is Jacqueline Garnier Ice. She works for Victim Services in Pine Ridge. And I like to mention missing and murdered Indigenous women. We have that issue and that problem here on the reservation, not only locally but nationally. There's no known statistic to that, no one's keeping track of, except on obituary cards that, these people are missing, nothing's getting answered. My wife, she goes inside the school systems to younger grades, K through 8, talks about, teen adolescence, good touch, bad touch. She goes inside the upper grades, 9 through 12, and adolescence, teen pregnancy, and so forth like that. And she goes on our radio station, which is 90.1 FM, KILI, all capital letters. You can look that up on YouTube or Google it. A lot of information pops up about the going-ons and throughout the Pine Ridge Reservation, where anywhere from 45 to 55,000 members. We have a college system reservation-wide, transit system reservation-wide. The methamphetamine and alcoholism is rampant here. The pill popping was bad, but the meth overcame that, and with that you have a lot of even before the rapes that's happening, and women are selling themselves, so it's almost like not a rape, but it is a rape. They just a different way of going through it.
The sexualization of Native American women on this reservation, you were talking about in the 70s, AIM came here. That was in part related to those issues, or?
Yes, because our government, the president, his name was Dick Wilson during that time frame, supported by law enforcement that was under the umbrella of goons, and those letters stood for Guardians of Our Oglala Nation. And they were the individuals, their whole group in general were the ones that, because they had that power to go around and abuse our communities. And that's when our nieces, our daughters, our mothers, our grandparents, our friends in the community that were women, all these people ended up or coming up missing. Some were found, most weren't. Some in the Badlands, some out here in these open fields, noses and toes still peeking out the ground, you know. And so some of us residents, we go out on walks to help with that matter, to help maybe give them families closure, because it is an ongoing problem here. There's one that posters for quite a few women around the reservation. My niece being one of them. Her name is and was Michelle Alboshield. Rest in peace. They just found her remains, so she's a case that's going to get solved through the legal system. She was enticed with the allure of a party, with drugs, with alcohol, and they get to connecting like this on Facebook, on Messenger. They connect to parties like that, not knowing the jeopardy, the danger they're going into, the environments. So they end up. She was missing for quite some time. They had a few false calls throughout the United States about they had to go make sure the remains that they found was not hers and stuff like that. But there's other ones than Michelle, Larissa Lonehill. She's still missing up to this day. Her remains are still not recovered. And I can't remember the exact date on that, but she, like I said, she's been missing quite some time. And she was a young gal that, would just call them car hoppers, jump in with people in cars. Hey, we're going to Kyle and go party over here and bring you back later on or tomorrow. Or they just go as is and hope that goes according to what that was told. I guess you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But I guess they could tell you anything. They end up in Rapid City at these hotels. Motel 6, Econo Lodge. I mean, all these jackrabbit hotels around there in the Dakota roads, everywhere. They're just kind of the two most well-known ones that I guess are got lost to the drugs and the alcohol that's so rampant here on the reservation. It starts at a young age, at home, 9, 10, 11. When young kids, the parents, they leave this much alcohol inside the bottle. That kid, they get curious and take a sip. That pill they smashed up, they left a little residue still on the dash or the phone or the kid's iPad or something, or the countertop, or someone's dope pack or pipe got found, or maybe the dad's so undereducated, so mad and evil in his own mind that he offered it to his kid. He's not giving her the momentum to want to go to school and get educated. To be a kid, to want to grow up like that, these PTA meetings and do things like that. So those are starting at 9, 10, 11. They're walking in, they see all these things happening at home. The abuse of verbal, physical, mental, spiritual. All forms, shapes, and abuse. And then on top of that, the poverty, the drugs, the alcohol. Every day, I've been an addict myself, recovered now. But every day it was wanting a head change, just to get out of this reality. But then when you're intoxicated, whatever your vice is, you feel the sorrow and all the hurt that you've done to these people. And it beats you up. And I did this, I did that. It's hard to want to help someone without enabling them, because they gotta want to receive that help. There's no treatment here on the reservation. Our tribe's so stuck with nepotism and embezzling that they're not focused on the actual treatment for the people. And that's bad. There's no jobs, and everybody looks around and says there's a lot of wide open spaces here, but there's no buildings. We're not working the land. So their occupation that happened up here in Wounded Knee, it lasted for 73 days. Us residents, we call it an occupation. The government calls it a siege or standoff. It lasted for 71 days. Some of my grandparents and elders were nurses and worked on some of the injured back during that time frame. One of the well-known people that were killed that was a supporter, her name was Anang Ogichidaag. I hope I said it right. But I believe she was from the Canada area or something like that. But she came down to help stand shoulder to shoulder with us during this time that we're talking about in the 70s. And some of the AIM founders ended up killing her. Some of them got arrested for it and were in prison. They came out 15 years later and told on some of the founders that were here on the streets living. So they got arrested. So since then we only have victim services here on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And my wife being one of the advocates right now, Milton Bianis, Phaedra Madden, Dora Young Dog, and they have, I don't know the other, I can't remember the other full names, the other shelter advocates. But they need more to help bring attention to these places, these communities. A lot of people worry about the ones that are missing. What about the ones that are doing it that's still here? That's above ground. That's worse knowing that than the ones that are gone. It could be anybody and everybody that's doing this. I don't want to name a particular, race or ethnicity or stuff like that. Try to place blame because it is our own too that's doing this. So I'd rather mention our own doing this to our own because I was sexually abused as a child by my own, by a family member in my family. And for all these years now, I've regretted it, cried, and wonder why, and asked God why I can't forget that. Yeah. Well, up to this day now, I forgave him, and I feel better about myself, and then spoke about it with a couple clergy and stuff like that. So.
I do want to talk more about how you overcome something like that, even though you can't forget it.
I think that it helped me to talk about it because I was hesitant and shy because I knew that me being a male, I knew that they were going to look at me or think different, or maybe I'm thinking that they're thinking different. That just having that ugly paranoid thought was scary for me growing up and whatever. But I never really talked about it like to my brothers. Never really talked about it to my mother. Off and on, here and there, bits and pieces. But it was during times I went to treatment that I was actually able to say, hey, maybe I am still a little frustrated about this. Maybe it actually still is bothering me mentally somehow, and I'm not catching it. Maybe there's a term for it, and that I can't remember that term you said earlier. That
Transference.
Yeah, so that things can like that happen, and so I think for me it was just. In the beginning, I guess what helped me cope was my drugs and my alcohol.
When did this start happening in your childhood?
When I can remember, I must have been maybe 4, maybe about 4.
4 years old.
5, maybe somewhere around there. And it happened. I don't remember how long it happened. I just remember just one particular time it did happen. I knew something was wrong because I was hurt, so I went upstairs and I told my dad. He was alive, and I told him that, hey, my rear end hurts, and I ended up explaining to him what happened to me downstairs. And my older cousin, he was a teenager back then, so he knew exactly what he was doing. And older took advantage of me being a kid, and So you know, my family, they did violence against him back then, but now I pity him now. And they kind of shunned him, and our whole family kind of shunned him for a couple years, as far as I know back then. But as I got older in my teens, I always made a point to never be around the motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like I didn't, hey, what's up? I try to be around it. I was states away and did my whole life, you know. But I came to understand that for me to live a better life, be more healthy, and move on, that I need to forgive myself, forgive him too, and maybe that might help him in his walk if he needs that little straightening or forgiveness and closure, you know, for doing that, because you know we all know the things we do, and if we don't close them down and make amends, and then we're gonna face the man above, and he gonna wonder why we didn't try to make things right.
Yeah. When you say forgive yourself, what did you have to forgive yourself for?
Of not doing nothing when it was happening to me. Because some people say, like, people that happen to, they do that to other people. No, that's not my fucking case. But not doing nothing. But as small as I was, I think, like, now, I should have squirmed away or something. But screamed, yelled, you know. But I guess in other situations, you know what I mean, that violence keeps continuing, you know. And I'm fortunate and thank the Creator, man, that, you know, that my cycle stopped there, you know, because maybe this happened to him as in his past. And most assaults or rapes happen by family members.
Let's talk a little bit about the shame and guilt, because I know so many Native Americans have shame and guilt about being raped. And I was wondering if you could kind of expound on that and how you overcome that.
I guess voicing it, you know, actually putting a voice to it, and because getting that message out there, there's other people that have been in the same situation, that, you know, survivors too, that, you know, they could be old as dirt right now. It happened way back when, or it happened yesterday or something, you know. But actually giving a voice to it instead of holding it in, thinking that's just, I'm gonna forget, or maybe that guy forget, you know. Or I'm living my life so good now, things are going on, I'm not worried about it no more. But somehow, some way, that's in that things in that mind. You know, you had a funny life, somehow pop in your mind. Like, that fucking happened to me. Just out of nowhere. You know, but yeah, just actually giving a voice to it was very important. And people listening. Especially the people that on the other side that actually been through it too. Because then they're more empathetic, sympathetic to it than the actual person that's just trying to get information, or, you know, because that's not enough ear that person needs, man. They need that person that been there, you know, that, hey, my pants are down the same fucking way, the same old motherfucker, you know. That's the only I think that helped me when the other people opened up too, you know, or somewhere in private, somewhere in groups or whatever, man. I don't know. I guess it's just about being good to yourself, man, and prayer, because there's only so much you can do to forgive yourself and find peace. You know, don't want to keep praying for the same thing every day, and, you know, God's specific, man. So I was addicted to drugs and alcohol for quite some time, but it was through, you know, clergy and spiritual leaders that I was able to find my way back to the Creator and be thankful that I was saved and that He understands me and that He's always been there walking with me. I just never took the chance to look to my left and my right. I was so tunnel vision as I was going. You know, my father's gone, my mother's still above ground, still living. Have all my brothers and stuff. You know, but I think I have a lot of, I guess I know, family members that things like that happen to, I guess, the women more so than the men, and how they accept it. No one wants to bring attention to that, or no one wants to tell an uncle or cousin or their brother. Maybe they don't want to disrupt their assailants, lifestyle, where they're living a good lifestyle, respectable, responsible, married, They don't want to mess it all up, thinking he's a pedophile, pervert, you know what I mean? Bullshit like that, you know what I mean?
Are you aware, did your cousin end up raping anyone else?
I don't think so. I think that, he but I don't know if he learned his lesson or not like that. He didn't go to jail, no charges were filed or anything like that. But as far as I know, I don't think he had no knowledge of him doing nothing like that to anybody else. But it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I'm just saying, I was a kid, and it's been a long time since then.
Do you know why your family didn't press charges on him?
I asked that, probably about 15 years ago one time. And I give a fuck about cops, man. You know what I mean? But I did ask my mom, how come he never went to jail for that? That's just, everybody around here got a sex offender register 500 feet away from schools, and he should get the same treatment. I mean, just because I forgive don't mean he's still not capable of that. There's still some other kid out there that could be a victim. He ain't changed. You know what I mean? I don't know what happened to him. He's still the same old dude. Maybe he's lying in wait in his moves. I don't know. But I don't know. Nothing happened to him. And, I still don't wish no bad on him.
How do you think forgiving him has helped you?
It helped me be, I guess, more empathetic to other people's abuse that happened to them. Because before I didn't want to hear about it, or didn't give a fuck, or too shy or something. Or I would omit certain details or something like that. Or
when you're seeing family members who are abusive, and then you become curious about some of these substances they're taking, where is the hope for a child in this type of situation?
I think wanting to get back and get educated, that's where it starts. Because at home, everybody got phones now. No parents are talking, spending time no more. Every kid's face down, phone face. They're watching Snapchat and taking sexual selfies and videos, and these things are going on. All these smoke bombs on Snapchats and private conversations and stuff like that. Me growing up, I was always around my elders. I grew up to my Lakota tongue being dialect being spoken in the house, or at least hearing my mother speak to her mother. But as I got older, I started realizing how much we're losing our culture, and as our elders are passing away, how much is taken with them, and how much I don't know. I'm 46 years old, and I can barely speak and understand my Lakota language, which I should be fluent in, and that should be my first language, and English should be my second language. We're losing our identity, and that's where the dark spirit comes from, because we're losing our identity as Native Americans, our code of ethics, and what we're supposed to stand by. We're listening to too much hip hop, the cartels here, 1% crews here, bootleggers here, all these things that's going on. I guess for myself, I never took the chance when I was growing up to understand or know my people, my way of life. I wanted what was on the radio, what was on TV. And I didn't want them learning about my culture, the song, the drum, the dance. My language, most importantly, and to represent just Native Americans just in a good way, not try to be prejudiced and not represent us, not know nothing. So as I was growing up, I didn't take the time to learn nothing, not be educated, no songs, no nothing. I wanted to just drink, drug, and be with my friends. With every generation gap, we're losing a lot of history. And our history is oral, so that's how it's dying out so fast.
How could you allow this? I asked the Creator, the greatest love that Star and I had experienced, our love for each other, gone. Why did you let us be destroyed? I asked you for help. Why didn't you help? And then he showed me all these women, little boys and little girls being raped and shattered. And the finger pointed back at humanity. Why haven't we protected our own? We live in a sexual wasteland where we don't respect our own bodies, let alone the body of another. Our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, even our boys have been lusted after rather than loved. And what has that done to the emotional network of their psychological and spiritual formation? Do you have any idea how special you are? The radiance of your intrinsic worth shining brightly self-esteem from the deep skies of your souls? Or has your perception of self-value become a fallen mirror whose reflection dimly glimmers from a million broken pieces? Movies, music, social media, fashion, all forms of entertainment continuously and relentlessly sexualize and objectify young girls, reducing the sacredness of their individuality and personhood to endless waves of flesh for purchase or for free, or for perverse fantasy that drives the dark hearts and sick minds of those who are willing to steal innocence, break little hearts, twist little minds, and in a single moment turn a free child into a lifelong slave of his or her own precious, sexually assaulted soul. The United States of America is the #1 producer of pornography in the world. There is probably no country in the modern age that has more dehumanized women on a global scale. What has this contributed to the 1 in 3 women worldwide who are estimated to be physically or sexually assaulted in their lifetime? How much higher are the numbers for crimes that are underreported, especially within Indigenous communities? What happens to a nation built on dreams of freedom, but through chains of slavery and sexual exploitation? What happens to its people, to the masters and to the slaves, through generations of conquest and trauma, prosperity and despair? Will anything ever change? Sexualization, objectification, dehumanization, exploitation, prostitution, pedophilia, rape is in demand, and not just by a few, Who will stop it? Are we as individuals too morally compromised in our sexuality to come together as a society and make the changes necessary to end not just rape in the shadows, but the open and public assault on a young woman's identity through the weaponization of her body, the mortal beauty of her physical physique, forced to beat to deformity, the ever-blooming eternity of her inmost being. I'd like to express my gratitude for being invited by Pauletta down to Pine Ridge Reservation, which helped me get this podcast started. Wapilatanka, Austin, for being the first one to open up. I was in Wounded Knee filming, and people started coming up to me to sell their jewelry and artwork. I quickly explained to them that I was there because the woman I love was hurt on a reservation, and I was trying to make a podcast about abuse in Native American communities. And they each told me a little bit about themselves, what they were going through in that moment. One of the people I ended up speaking to was Austin. We talked for a while, and then I asked him if he wanted to just record right then and there, and he was willing to do that. So we ended up recording the segment inside his vehicle at the massacre site in Wounded Knee. I think there's special meaning in the fact that the creator turned Born of Love into reality by bringing Austin and I together in the same location that 134 years prior, well over 200 of his Lakota people were murdered by the United States Army. How much has that single event alone trickled through history into the present and still traumatically affect the lives of people every day in Wounded Knee and on Pine Ridge Reservation? Even so, there is hope because God has a way of transforming the tragedy that kills into the strength that saves. And on the day we met, Austin turned a historical site of suffering into a new place of restoration because he used his voice to help heal those who are like him. Your words matter, all of you who have been silenced for far too long. Jesus is gonna lift you up, because although the world forgot who you are, maybe even you yourself forgot, your creator never has. Gazagan Star.